Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Anecdotal Evidence. I'm very excited to share this week's episode with you. It's my conversation with Indu Arora. Indu is a teacher of Ayurveda and Yoga, and I came to know her work through my partner Brooke's participation in the Ayurveda Wellness Counselor program here at the Asheville School of Massage and Yoga. And Brooke was just very excited about this teacher who would come in to teach some of the classes about the psychology of yoga, or the yoga of the mind. And she was able to share some of those lectures with me, and I listened to them, and I was fascinated as well because this lady was describing the mind-body connection in a way that I'd never heard exactly. She was articulating the philosophy of Samkhya and how it relates to Ayurveda and yoga and our understanding of the mind, and I found it just fascinating, and it's quickly obvious what a great teacher she is. And so Brooke told me that she was organizing a trip to India called Insight India 2016, and we did a lot of talking and planning, and we decided we were going to try to do it, and in fact we did do it, and that's what we've been talking about the past few episodes, what a momentous experience that was, and I've been trying to share what I learned from that trip. And I was fortunate enough to be able to coordinate with Indu time for a conversation when we returned for the podcast. And so on May 19th, 2016, we sat down for about an hour conversation, and I had the great privilege of being able to just ask her questions about the mind and the body and how they're related and what yoga means, what's the deeper meaning of yoga, and how it relates to us, and what her thoughts are about concepts like depression and anxiety, and just a brief introduction as to what the yogic understanding of these concepts is. And I found the conversation very stimulating, and I'm just grateful to have had the experience. And so I'm very excited to share that with you today. So this is my conversation with the great yoga teacher, Indu Arora. Well, Indu, very glad you're here. Welcome back to Asheville. You've been here a number of times, I guess, right?
Yes, it has been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Revisiting it over and over.
Yeah, okay, good. Well, we're really glad to have you here at the house. And I know the Asheville School of Massage and Yoga is very grateful to have you back this weekend. You got a big weekend ahead of you, and so thank you for coming out here tonight and sitting down for a conversation here. Just to introduce to the listener what's going on here, we're just sitting around the table after a light meal. It's me here, Daniel Johnson, MD, and I'm here with Indu Arora, our guest on this episode of the podcast, and we're also blessed to have Agoda Shastak. Shastak. Thank you. Hi, Agoda.
Hi.
And Brooke. Brooke just goes by Brooke. She's the silent guest of the podcast. She's my partner and fiance at this point. And we all four of us here just got back from a trip to India together. The Insight India 2016 trip.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was 18 days. Something like that?
I 18, think it 19? Was about 14 days plus the travel, to and from.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it was just an incredible experience as a participant. Again, thank you to our trip leaders, Indu and Agoda, for putting this trip together. And I've been trying to share what the Insight India trip meant to people who listen to the podcast and are interested in my work. And
this is just a great opportunity to get to sit down with you, Indu, to talk with you personally about your work as a teacher. So I think a great place to start would be just for you to describe what it is that led you to be a teacher of yoga and Ayurveda.
First of all, I would like to say to the listeners that I'm not a teacher.
Okay.
I'm a student of yoga and Ayurveda. And that is the most important role that I choose to play in this life or lifetime. And it is absolutely not a work for me. It is a pleasure to study. And I think it is the curiosity that led me to this path. And I remember as being a child, I would be very curious about certain home remedies that my mother would share. Or my father, I always saw my father every day performing yoga postures, performing dinacharya, Ayurvedic daily routine. And I was intrigued by the collection of his books, his talks, and that overall impact of their lifestyle on mine. So it was a curiosity that was at a subtle level, and I realized it, I think I was 16 when I met my first spiritual master, and until then I think it was all a preparation to be led to that point.
Yeah. Right. In retrospect, that's how it felt, how it feels now.
Yeah.
So were your parents practitioners or just in the home, or were they professionals? Or?
No, they were not professionals. I think this was a part of their life or their lifestyle.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it is more ingrained than a profession. I would say specifically related to yoga that yoga has become a profession. It was never meant to be one. It is a journey of an individual. And now it has come to the point where people are opting for it to become a profession, and therefore putting standards related to it, standardization of schools, and it is coming to that point where people can call it that this is my work. But it was a choice that people made to explore themselves. And I think that is the most important aspect of this field, to allow and give you tools for exploration. And Ayurveda was practiced so that you can establish yourself in the state of health. Now, what I see is health is becoming a goal. And if you would ask someone, what if you become healthy? Then what? What after? What are you going to do with this health? This gift that you're going to have in this lifetime, with all possible tools that you're going to use to become healthy. What next? What are you going to do with that treasure? Just be healthy. Okay, I'm going to be a better professional. And then what is that going to provide you? Some contentment. So finally, it brings you back to yourself. So there is a larger goal that awaits once you establish yourself in health. And that is the gift of yoga, that it gives you direction once you're established. So there is so much more to look forward to. So they work in communion, yoga and Ayurveda.
It's all part of the same system.
It is. I generally say that no matter how thin you slice a coin, it will still have two sides.
And yoga and Ayurveda are the two sides.
They are like, that's why they're referred to as sister sciences.
Okay.
And the way that I have understood it is that Ayurveda allows you to keep your relationship harmonious, coherent, attuned, balanced with the macrocosm, which means with the world around you. Whether it is the people you're going to meet, the profession you're going to choose, the food that you're going to eat, the geographical space you're going to be in. So it allows you to be in harmony with that cosmic space. And yoga allows you to take care of the inner space, microcosmic space. So they kind of have a specific area that they work upon. But, again, where is microcosm and where is macrocosm? Macrocosm doesn't start where your body ends. We generally think that I am the microcosm and everything around me is the macrocosm. It is such a relative term that they are always into each other. They're all, you can keep, kind of zooming in, and then you will find that the microcosm and macrocosm is all inside. So it is a coin, but just like a coin can be sliced and you can see the two sides, but I see that they are more coexisting. These sister sciences are more coexisting than even referring to them as two sides. There is no boundary. Yeah. That this is where your space is, and now I begin.
We are getting into some of the depth of this field. I mean, because this is intense. I mean, intense is not the right word. I mean, these are huge concepts of microcosm and macrocosm and the coexistence and how they're intertwined, and it's in everything that we do. But going back to your personal experience, so you grew up in India.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is where these sciences are from, right? Yoga and Ayurveda.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd say so.
Okay. And you said in your household growing up, it was just practiced. Was it part of how your parents lived, or the community, or?
Yeah, it's how my mother cooked, how my mother suggested us things if we would get sick, simple home remedies. And in the everyday discussions with my father, I remember that we as family used to have a lot of discussions every single night. We would sit around and talk about so many different aspects of life. And I think that was yoga for me. How to lead your life, how to see your journey, and what is a larger picture.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so you were exposed to this, and was it called yoga? Did your dad say, we're going to talk about yoga, or was it just in how the conversation flowed?
Yeah. I think another thing is that whenever we hear the word yoga, the common picture that comes to someone's mind is probably a human being either upside down or in a posture or doing some kind of breathing or sitting in a meditative posture. But I say that I see, or this is what I have learned with my limited understanding, that yoga is about life. It's about everyday conversation. These mats are invented now, There's a space of 3x6.
Yeah.
In earlier times, yoga was the entire landscape is your mat. I would say the world is the playground to practice yoga. So it was not that now I'm going to talk about yoga. That it was lessons of life, and it kind of made you aware that there is so much more to life. It kind of gave you a structure how to view life and the importance of being born in human form.
Wow. I guess we're not going to escape the depth of yoga. We're not going to be able to talk about this superficially, nor would we want to. I mean, that's the point, is to appreciate the depth of this world of yoga, and to maybe learn what it could mean for us here in America and our listeners here, and just anyone tuning in. Like, is this a particularly Indian school, or is this a universal doctrine? How would you describe it to somebody naive to the concept of yoga?
There is a saying that when what you think and what you say and what you do become one, that is yoga. I think it can apply to everyone. Doesn't matter where you are from, which culture you belong to. There is a value in commitment. There is a value in clarity of mind. There is a value in what you are saying, and do you really mean it? There is a value in that intention, and yoga means union. When there is a union, when there is a harmony at your level of thought, your level of speech, and your level of action, then then there is a life of substance. Then there is a life that is grounded. Then you are connected to yourself, and that is what yoga is all about. How much are you connected to yourself? And that can vary. That understanding can vary from person to person. How deep you would like to take that. What is yourself? Is yourself your body? Is yourself your emotions? Is yourself your mind that thinks? Your intellect that makes you prioritize? Or that sense of connection which brings contentment? So at different points in life, it can bring you to different place. But I feel that connection to self is so important. And I think that practically it is this communication between your mind, your body, and your actions.
And that sounds like a state of harmony and peace when we're in that zone, or when it's going that way. And that may be when we're practicing yoga or actualizing yoga, or or maybe my question is, what about when we're not that way? What about when our actions and our speech and our thoughts are more chaotic or aren't lining up?
I can describe it in 2 words: reaction and response. When there is an internal conflict, we jump to conclusions. We make assumptions. We react. Versus when there is a pause, or when there is a moment when we can reflect, then what comes through you is a response, not a reaction. And I think that makes a huge difference in how your steps are going to give a direction to your life. That conflict matters. It builds so much stress at a subtle level, at a conscious level. It is, I would go ahead and say it's inflammatory to your system when there is that level of conflict within you. I don't think anyone can be healthy with having a conflict within. Only if that conflict leads you to self-inquiry, if that conflict leads you to challenging your own thought pattern, if that conflict leads you to contemplation, then that kind of conflict is welcome because it's leading you. It's kind of leading you towards being progressive, being productive. Versus if it's a kind of conflict which leads you to reaction, then I think we are in some kind of race.
Then we're racing like without our wise mind. Is that what you mean when you say race?
Well, I would say that mostly our society is built on the structure of success, accomplishment. That what does it mean to be successful? What does it mean to be accomplished? And it is generally measured in terms of money or power. And everyone is kind of in a race. How much successful am I? What is it that I'm doing? And then, slowing down seems not being progressive, not being efficient. So we do not acknowledge, reward slowing down. We do not acknowledge the pause. And that is what it means to be racing, because everyone wants to be accomplished and successful and known and wealthy and rich, established in the society. And there is little talked about what does it mean to be established in yourself, and it's okay to take time.
Right. So yoga would advocate for taking a pause and time to think and to quiet the mind.
It is, I think all it does is it brings you to awareness. It is not even necessarily taking about a pause or not. It just brings you to the awareness that between your sensing something and you're responding to it, there is a choice. The choice is not just to act or not to act. At times it could be just to be, just to take a pause and not do anything. Not always to make a choice between the two. There is the possibility of this third step that you can take, which is a step of reflection. So I think it's all about building a sense of awareness. I would say that yoga is about building awareness, and then it takes you on a journey at its own. Once you become aware, then even if you're doing something which is not good for your health, not good for your mind, or not good for your body, you are still doing it from being aware. That itself makes you a responsible being, that you are responsible for your actions now that you are aware of it. And I think sooner or later, I think that sense of awareness marinates into you and brings a different kind of response towards what's going on in life.
So when you have some awareness, you want to have more.
I think it is natural.
Yeah.
It is natural.
Yeah.
That it naturally takes you deeper. And for everyone, there is a different path. It's not just one way. It's not that if you do not do it this way, that is it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone has a different path to realize that awareness.
That's interesting because, some of the schools of yoga advocate for particular dogmas of a particular path. Mm-hmm. I practice Ashtanga Vinyasa yoga. Mm-hmm. Not totally, but, I feel like I'm wanting to totally. I feel the dogma feels very comforting to me, and it definitely feels like it helps. And yet, I also intuitively know that it's not the only path. Like you're saying, there's other paths than perhaps, and it's different for everyone.
Yes.
How do you know when to utilize a dogma for your path, or when to step outside of a dogma in yoga?
First of all, do not become too comfortable with the path, with the journey. The journey is to awaken you. Okay, not to make you very restful. It is to make you grounded. But the journey is to awaken you. Whether to move or to still, whatever it takes to wake you up.
Okay.
So, and how will you know? I think there is an innate sense present in all of us. And all we have to do is stay aware, and it will guide you. No, I would suggest that don't look for answers from outside about this. Because again, yoga is awakening your inner intelligence. Any answers from outside will bring dependency. And any answers that come from inside will bring solution. There's a difference between getting answers and finding solution. Finding solution is your own path. Getting answers can be very intellectually satisfying, but that's not what self is all about. So it's okay. Take your time. What is the rush again? Take your time, You will come to that point of being connected to yourself. We are naturally programmed to come back to that still point. And yoga, there are so many styles in yoga, but yoga is one. It is, we generally understand 1 + 1 is equal to 2, or 1 + 1 is equal to 11, or 1 + 1 could be infinity, but in yoga, 1 + 1 is equal to none. Don't create a third entity out of it. It is the art and science of dissolution, not creating something totally new.
Okay. And when I hear dissolution, I get fearful.
Yeah. Because because we don't know what that might mean.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like it scares me to think that, I would dissolve. Like I'm attached to myself. Even my mind, and I mean that, I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit here, but, I also do, there is real fear there.
And I can understand that. It is, we are born in this body as the vessel, how to detach from it or how to deny its existence or do something that might completely disassociate us with it. But it is not about disassociation with the physical body. It's in fact forming a deeper connection. Going back to your roots will not make you dissolve, it will make you grounded.
That's interesting. So what is dissolving here when we're talking about dissolution? Is it our attachments to certain physical forms, or is
I think we all have attachment to our physical form, to our minds, our ideas, my unique idea, my copyright, and so on and so forth. And somehow right before a child is born, I think the parents start calling the child with a certain name or quality or what the child is going to become or whom the child is going to look like. So we are programming those ideas of attachment right before the child is born. So here, coming back to yourself is just, probably start asking who you are. Because I know that this is kind of a deeper philosophy in the field of yoga, Vedanta, and Ayurveda, where they all talk about self. They all talk about merging back with the source, merging back to your inner self, which is beyond the physical body or any of the gross, tangible forms that we attach ourselves to. So it's one of the basic practices in yoga where we do the practices of first, koham, who am I? Then naham, I am not this, I am not this, I am not this. So first starts with who am I? What is our understanding of self? I am a teacher, I am a woman, I am a wife, I am a sister. We can keep writing, but if we really deeply introspect it, we are actually not answering who am I, we are answering what am I? And so these are all roles that we have taken. And what happens is we start identifying with these roles. And if for some reason one of these roles start to disappear, that brings a sense of sadness or heaviness, or let's say lack of identity, because these roles become identity.
Right.
So the first is koham, who am I? Then comes naham, I am not, which does not mean you're denying that I am not a woman, or I am not a sister, or I'm not a teacher. It is more like I'm not just a teacher. I'm not just a woman. And then comes the third step, which is soham, I am that. Which means that we are slowly trying to understand that the ray of the sun and the sun are not two different things. The drop and the ocean are not two different things. The leaf and the tree are not two different things. The sap of a fruit and the fruit are not two different things. So we are slowly kind of understanding, I am that. And then we come to the fourth, aham, which means I am. So it is a journey, and I understand that initially it can be confusing, but it does not. You'll still stay in your body. So your body is not going to go into instant combustion or something the moment you realize who you are. It's just that it brings you to the level of self-actualization and self-realization. And that is what is called the highest level of awareness. It does not mean you will stop operating in this life the role that you are leading. It just means probably you'll be the most productive, most aware in how to be in that role.
when we're talking about yoga, does this mean going to like, a class at the local gym, or how do you begin to practice this? How do you begin if you're naive to all this? Where do you start?
Start from where you are, but know that there is more. Which what I mean by this is maybe your yoga practice will start from a gym. And initially the concept of yoga for you or for us might be yoga as a workout, but know that yoga is not supposed to be a workout, it's a work in. So keeping your eyes on the bigger picture, that the philosophy of yoga is more connected to knowing yourself. It is not about having a very well-toned musculoskeletal system.
Right.
And it is not about losing weight. You may join a class, whichever inspires you, but initially if you're joining to a yoga session as in an instruction class, although it's almost like an oxymoron when you say yoga and practice or yoga and instruction and yoga and class, because it's a state. The word yoga is a state of mind. And so but that's the way we can understand it maybe to start with, that it is physical practices. But see if you find a connection with the person who is instructing the class. Does the person inspires you to an inward journey? And I always say that, when you end a session or end a class, let's say, with my personal limited awareness, I feel that after the class, are you calmer than before? Are you more still than before? Are you more clear than before? I think these are some of the qualities to watch for. Because only when you're calm, clear, and grounded, it's just like, you cannot see the bottom of a river or of a pond or a lake if the water is moving, if there is ripples. So is your mind calmer than before, still than before, clear than before? Then probably something that has been lingering at the level of thought will come up to the surface, or you can see it clearly. Versus, are you more tired than before? Have you really drained your energy? Because that's not what it's all about. Another aspect of yoga is that it's the multiplication of prana, not the expenditure of prana.
Right. Yeah, okay.
So do you feel not energized as I'm so active and my mind is so energized, let me go and grab a piece of chocolate or a glass of wine. I want to eat something spicy, What has it done to your state of mind? Has it stimulated you to the external world? Has it made you lethargic, dull, heavy? What has it done? This is something we are not programmed to observe, ask, and reflect upon. We don't even do that with the food that we eat or with the relationship that we are into. What is it doing to our system? So keep questioning that when you go to any class and try, but find that point or that person within yourselves or outside which can bring you these three qualities.
So would it be accurate to say that finding one's yoga according to one's path doesn't necessarily mean going to a yoga class, so to speak, but it could be in, doing woodworking or taking care of your pets or cleaning your house or whatever it allows you to draw inward in the inquisitive mind? Is that...
Yes, one aspect of yoga is to be present in whatever activity that you're doing, whether it's talking or gardening or cooking or walking. That is building the presence. That are you present in your body and mind, or is the activity that you're involved in becoming robotic? So that is an important aspect, but that is just a starting point. Don't stay there. What will you do with that presence? Again, what are you going to do with the health? What are you going to do with that presence that you're gathering in this moment? There is a direction that needs to be given to that. It's almost like when you are present into something, then all your senses are present. You're looking at that, your gustatory sense, your olfactory sense, your hearing, everything is present. Your kinesthetic sense, everything is present. But think of these senses as like 5 distractors. And when you are present with something, they gather like a laser beam. Now, what are you going to do with that laser beam that you have? It's a tool. Again, it's a tool in your hand.
Okay, so what to do with the harmony, when you're in that state of active being and awareness. And again, for the purpose of understanding where I don't know if most of us come from, but where I've come from a lot of times is a state of disharmony, and what I hear from a lot of my clients is, what do I do when I'm anxious, or what do I do when I'm depressed? What do we do when we're not in this state? How do we get there?
One of the most tangible thing is start paying attention to what is going on to your physiology in that moment. Your body temperature, your breathing, your heartbeat, the taste in your mouth, sensations, what is going on, so that you can understand what is it doing to your system. And it also brings an awareness to the moment. Any emotion brings a change in the breathing pattern. And if you can harmonize your breathing in that moment, you are actually sending a signal to your entire body to bring a shift. That, I think, is a tool which is tangible and present and available to everyone. And only if we start paying attention that these things do change. That when I am relaxed, this is my breathing pattern, start noticing. And when I'm anxious or depressed or angry, this is my breathing pattern. And can we at least give that guidance that let's go back to the breathing pattern when I'm calm? But that will only happen once you know the difference between your body's physiology when you're calm, clear, relaxed, versus tensed, anxious, depressed, or sad. Again, it comes back to awareness.
So I'm thinking about our classes that you led on our Inside India trip, and they were similar to some of the Americanized Hatha yoga classes that I've been to, where we were going into certain poses, but also what was different was there was a lot of questioning. How do you feel? Encouraging us to tune in. Is that part of the experience that you're describing?
Absolutely. That any practice that you're doing, anything, even if you move your little finger, it is changing the way your body is communicating, your nervous system, the alignment, everything changes with the tiniest of the movement in your thoughts, in your body. And so it does happen when you're practicing yoga, whether it's in the form of asanas or breathing or mantra or mudra or relaxation. The idea is to observe. What is it doing? How is the communication or interaction of this practice to my unique body? And until and unless we find that connection and communication, we won't find that road to self. We will be dependent, It is not a capsule that anyone who does this asana will have this result. No, it depends upon the individual physical, mental, emotional capacity and where they are. So it is going to have a different interaction with each one of us, our bodies, minds, breathing, and so on and so forth. We have to find what does it do to my system. And that gives you independence. That gives you freedom from dependency on someone else to guide you how to go to that place. So every practice or everything that you do in yoga should help you or motivate you or conspire you or inspire you to observe.
How would you describe, what is depression?
Oh, that's a big question.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, that's a tough one.
It is so relative, you know.
Right.
You cannot have a standard definition of these things.
Right.
I mean, you can have a clinical definition to what happens to your physical body and your breathing and, you know, so on and so forth. But from yogic point of view, it is more a state of mind than, okay, we make our mental conditions our physical conditions, and our physical conditions our mental conditions. So from yogic point of view, we are constantly in flux of these three states of mind, which is sattvic, which means clear and grounded, and lighter, a sense of lightness. And then comes rajas, which is a state of movement. It could express itself as confusion, it could express itself as motivation, it could express itself as indulgence, or chaos, anxiety, restlessness. And then comes the tamasic state of mind, where tamas means a state of heaviness, a state of dullness, a state of darkness, a state of sluggishness, a state of inertia, where we are clouded, and not just clouded, but clouded and heavy. So if at all I have to understand this term from yogic point of view, I would call it tamas, like a heavy veil that we put on our senses, that we put on our intelligence.
And is the goal to move towards a more sattvic state? Is that always the goal?
Okay, when our mind, let's say if sattva was to be understood as a color, it would be white, purity. Okay. If rajas has to be understood as a color, since it's continuous movement, it would be red. If tamas has to be understood as color, it would be black. Now, all these are still colors, right? You can move towards from coloring black towards white, from absorption towards reflection. But sattva is still one of the purest state of mind, but it's still a coloring from yogic point of view. So the more, and these are called gunas, which means qualities that you acquire or you train that your mind to be in. And there is a state called nirguna, which means beyond qualities. So the goal is initially continuously guiding yourself from moving from tamas to sattva, from darkness to light, from heaviness to lightness,
right?
From lethargy to energy. But what are you going to do with that energy, that lightness, that purity? I'll again come to that point. What are you going to do with that? Why should one be motivated to build that? And if at all you will say something as a goal, it is moving from white to transparent. And that is self, where there is no duality.
Yeah.
And I know this is a heavy concept, but I think that yoga cannot be stripped away from this concept. Ayurveda cannot be stripped away from this concept. We are trying to make these things simplified, which is great.
Yeah.
But let us not take away the essence. Simplicity is great. It helps us understand complex subjects. But the goal should be clear. It is if a philosophy has to be adopted, then it has to be adopted in its entirety. We may not live that philosophy completely, but the goal has to be there.
So even if you get to a state of lightness, a sattvic state, you still got to go beyond that.
Yes.
And then when you get to transparency, then what?
Then you are merged with yourself. Then that is the goal, yoga. That is the definition of yoga itself.
That's a long ways away, though, probably, right?
The gifts are enormous even when we move from tamas to sattva. Yeah. The amount of lightness that it brings to life, the amount of contentment that it brings our awareness towards, these are enormous gifts. They should not be taken for granted. yes, you can join a yoga class, and it can be directed towards high blood pressure or asthma or allergies or immunity or, so on and so forth, or weight loss. I say that these are the complementary benefits of these things, When you go to a shop and 1 + 1 and you buy this and you get this free. It's something like that these are complementary gifts that come. State of health comes complementary to the practice of yoga. And I think that gift should not be taken for granted, because we have gone so far from health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we need that.
If some practice can bring a state of health, I think that is great.
Okay, so thinking of it in these Western terms again, which I feel kind of wrong bringing it back into our broken model. But, since this is the model of currency of conversation here in America that we have all the time, so would anxiety be thought of as overly rajasic, perhaps? Mm-hmm. Okay. And what about the concept of bipolar disorder? Is that fluctuation?
It is actually considered a fluctuating mind.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And identification with one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, this is an older system, and this system it's tried and true, through thousands of years, right? Mm-hmm. And it feels more coherent and more complete, or it feels complete. But the questions remain. One of the questions that comes to my mind when I was looking on the Ashtanga Vinyasa information, it said that if you're able to attain to practice the system and attain a greater and greater state of health in the body, then the mind quiets automatically. And I was curious what your thoughts were about this. Because I'm guessing that you wouldn't necessarily agree with those words specifically, but maybe another way to phrase it and answer it either way would be, do we need to constantly refine the health of the physical body, and in so doing, does the mind follow suit and quiet itself, or is that missing out on a key concept?
Where is the mind? Is it in the brain?
Well,
because we generally, when someone talks about mind, they point the finger towards the brain.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so there is a disassociation right there, that we think mind is somewhere up there and body is somewhere, the rest of the gross, tangible body. The concept in yoga and Ayurveda of mind and body is not separable. It's inseparable. The mind is present in each cell, in the body of each cell. So you cannot say that, if the body is going to be healthy, then the mind is going to be healthy, or these are not two separate approaches or two separate directions and one would lead to another. They coexist, and that is going to start at the same time. If the body is becoming healthy, you cannot say the mind is not becoming healthy. The body is becoming healthy because the mind is becoming healthy. The intelligence that is present in each cell is at its epitome, and there is good amount of intra and extracellular communication. There is removal of metabolic waste. And what do you call that waste? You can call it as some debris that is from each cell, or you can consider it as thoughts, negative thoughts or emotions. How are you going to separate? Because from yogic and Ayurvedic point of view, each cell holds the memory of thoughts and emotions. Each cell holds the intelligence, because each cell is the microcosm to the tissue, which is the macrocosm. Each tissue is the microcosm to the organ, which is the macrocosm. Each organ is the microcosm to the organ system, that is the macrocosm. And each organ system is the microcosm to the whole body, that is the macrocosm. And the whole body is a microcosm to the system around it, which is the macrocosm. So it's all weaved within. And cell is not the tiniest structure. It is the subatomic particle, the nanoparticles, and they are made up of this chemical, thermodynamic, electrical energy, which is nothing but, from a yogic and Ayurvedic perspective, the qualities of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And that is what constitutes the space around, and that is what constitutes the space within. So it starts from that level. You cannot separate mind and the body, my dear.
Wow. That is very deep and eloquent. And I was following the microcosm as we're going from cell to organism and then going beyond. Could you comment on the yoga of relationships or of society and community, or would the proper term be the Ayurveda of relationships, since we're thinking macrocosm? How do you conceptualize this, or how would you describe a state of societal health and relationship health?
From yogic point of view, our mind, which may not be limited by the size of our body, but resides in our body, is nothing but a vibration. Okay? Because we are continuously thinking, we are continuously reflecting, and every time we think, it emits a ripple of vibration. And if we look from the other aspect, the entire universe, if it was considered, let's say, a spread, like the one on your table, it is made up of two threads interlacing each other. So there's considered to be only two kinds of vibrations at the micro level, a vibration of sound and a vibration of light. So if we could zoom deep enough, we wouldn't see relationships, trees, animals, human beings, animate and inanimate. We would just see these two vibrations, dense and light, at different places. Now, when we talk about a relationship, it is about a healthy weave or an unhealthy weave. And we are so much programmed to just think about ourselves, but in the sense of limitation. If we could just think about ourselves with a capital S, that would be great. Awesome. But our sense of self is so limited to my personal achievements and my personal goals that we think that anyone around us is not a part of my success, but should be a part of my failure. So there is a
It's easier to think of it that way. Yes, then you got somebody to blame. Right.
Exactly. So, the relationship that we have with things and people and objects is very much isolated. And we do not generally think that it affects. When someone is happy around you, you feel a sense of ease, comfort. And when someone is sad around you, there is no way. You can kind of pretend that it doesn't affect you, but there is no way it's not affecting you. So the point of view is, if we look at the whole world as this weave, as this thread, as this vibration of sound and light, then at any point in time, we are connected to everyone. And this is something that I recently wrote, that if we could just start, not live, but just start to think or come to the awareness that may my happiness not become sorrow for someone else, and may someone else's pain or loss not become the reason for happiness or gain for myself. I think that would set the pace for everything else, and not just think about, if I'm happy, I don't care. That's other person's responsibility. It has nothing to do with me.
Well, I appreciate the way you say that, because, in our field of psychiatry and psychiatric diagnosis, it has become evident to me over the years that the folks who get classified as patients in our system are very sensitive to others. And it feels like there's that sensitivity takes a toll on them, because they see all the suffering around them, and there's an authenticity to them in that they hurt within, and a lot of that feels like it's borne out suffering. So how do we deal with it when we are sensitive to this suffering vibration that's going on all around, and it's affecting us? How do we deal with that?
The idea is not just to become sensitive, because by becoming sensitive, then what? By becoming healthy, then what? Sensitivity allows you to open your mind and your heart to do something.
Okay.
So what are you going to do about it? How can you contribute in whatever little way you can? It does not have to be fixing something, Then we go to the other extreme and we want to fix everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And we just take the torch in our hand that I'm going to be the torch bearer and I'm going to bring light. That is the beginning of your suffering. When you, because then all the success and all the happiness and all the failures, you take it upon yourselves. And that becomes another journey of attachment. So it is that sensitivity is to do something about it. In whatever little ways, what can you contribute or what can you take away? Contribution is not always giving. At times it's taking a step back too. But you have to do something. You cannot play numb. You cannot, there is a one-liner in Indian, because in India, everything is shared through stories. So a pigeon can close the eyes and just think that the cat is not present. But it is,
Yeah.
It is. Just open your eyes.
Yeah.
So merely by disassociating that this suffering or this pain or this thing in my family or my relationship or my society or in my job is not present, is not going to take it away. In fact, you're suppressing a specific feeling and pushing into your subconscious, and it goes really deep, and then you will have to dig so hard to bring it to the surface and then deal with it. So suppression is no answer. Numbing yourself is no answer. Holding a torch and walking out that I'm going to be the leader and I'm going to fix it is going to be no answer. Contribute to it in whatever ways you can. But at the same time, don't make it your suffering, because then your mind is clouded. What has that sensitivity done to you if it has just made you stuck with that suffering? Don't feel it so deeply that you become that suffering. Let that suffering be a motivation to do something about it.
Wow. Well, so much of what you said right there really resonates with me in my life and my work at times, and I'm gonna have to digest that for a while. So you've got a big weekend ahead of you of sharing with the Asheville School of Massage and Yoga's Ayurvedic Wellness Program. So I want to go ahead and begin to wrap this up so that you can save your energy for your big weekend. Was there anything that you would like to add in closing other than what you've said?
Wake up.
Yes. Well, thank you. That's a perfect ending. Thank you so much for coming out and sharing with us tonight. I really appreciate it. This has been a true blessing again. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up, and now we get to have our dessert. All right. Thank you, Indu.
Thank you. Namaste to all the listeners, and stay connected. You can stay connected to myself, but don't forget to stay connected to yourself.
Lovely. And I should also mention, how do folks find your work on the web?
They can go on my website, which is yogsadhana.com or induarora.com, and let's stay in touch.
Great.
Let's keep inspiring each other.
That's it. It's my conversation with Indu Arora. Thanks to her for taking the time to share with me so that I could share this with you. She's just such a great teacher and just a joy to be around. I learned so much from being on her trip. I will always be grateful to her for that opportunity. And I'm just really glad I had an opportunity to share this conversation with you. So thanks again to Indu, and thanks to you for tuning in to Anecdotal Evidence. We're about to wrap up the first season of Anecdotal Evidence. Just have a few more episodes left before we wrap up this season. I've got some really exciting guests to share with you. And so we'll be talking about this wrap up in the episodes to come. So thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time. Till then, take care. It's Daniel Johnston.